All right, everyone, welcome here to another edition of Planetarium Online. At some point, I used to give you the whatever number show this was. But we've done so many of them, I have completely lost count at this point. So once again, welcome everyone. My name is Andrew from the Liberty Science Center over in Jersey City, New Jersey. And I'm very excited to be here with you today to talk all about the supermoon. But a couple real quick things while we are waiting to begin. Today, the show is going to be, of course, about the supermoon. We'll be talking about why it happens, how to see it, and also using some of our time today to talk about some other incredible moons that we can find other places out in the solar system. Liberty Science Center has been open now for many, many months, and I've been so excited to see so many of you visit the planetarium. If you want to visit Liberty Science Center, now is a great time to do that because we are celebrating. We're celebrating animals at Liberty Science Center now through our incredible Wild About Animals series of programming that's going to be going on at Liberty Science Center until May 9th. Lots of really, really awesome animal-themed programs. We've got a really cool animal-themed laser show in the planetarium, as well as our regular awesome planetarium shows going on every day. We are open Thursday through Sunday. If you want to check us out, you can visit our website, which is lsc.org, to purchase tickets, and really, really look forward to seeing you in the planetarium. We've also got another one of our Planetarium Online broadcasts coming up next Thursday, where we will be talking all about some things you can look for in the May nighttime sky. Now, about our program today, as always, if you have questions during the program, we encourage you to write those in the comments. I'll be keeping my eye on them to answer questions during the program, but my colleague Mike, the director of the planetarium, is going to be in the comments section as well, answering some of your questions too. I'll also be hanging out after the show to answer even more questions, which is my absolute favorite thing to do. But I think with all of those sort of housekeeping notes out of the way, we can go ahead and begin our look at the supermoon. So let me go ahead and just switch ourselves over to our digital planetarium system here, using the same software that we use in the planetarium to sort of bring the sky to you at home. So this is what the sky would look like right about now if we looked outside, took away some of the clouds and buildings and trees that might be blocking your view of the sky. If you're facing toward the west, and to see much else other than just the really bright sun up in the sky, we are going to need to do a little bit of waiting for that sun to go down. Thankfully for us in the planetarium, we don't need to wait very long because we have complete control over time itself. And we're just going to wait until a little bit after the sun goes down. Now, if you watch the sunset tonight, you will be, of course, facing toward the south, or facing toward the west, excuse me. But as the sun is going down, tonight, that is exactly the same time we are going to be seeing the moon rising over in the other part of the sky. So just as the sun goes down, to check out the supermoon, you're going to need to face over toward the southeast. Low in the sky, right around 9 o'clock, 9:30, is where we're going to find the full moon. But as you know, this is not just any old regular everyday full moon. This is a very special kind of full moon called a supermoon. But what exactly is a supermoon? So to talk about the supermoon, I always like to use sort of the scientific definitions of words, especially when they are really, really fun to say. And the scientific name for a supermoon is a perigee-syzygy. Technically, a perigee-syzygy of the Earth-Moon-Sun system. But that word perigee-syzygy is a lot of fun to say. I encourage you to say it at home as well. This gives us some clues as to what exactly a supermoon is. That first word, perigee, just means that the moon is at its nearest point to the Earth. And the second word, the more fun of the two to say, syzygy, just means that the sun, the Earth, and the moon form a line, which gives us a full moon. Combine these two words together and we get really what a supermoon is, which is a full moon that occurs while the moon is near its closest point to the Earth. Because things that are closer to us look bigger and brighter, a supermoon looks bigger and brighter than a normal, everyday full moon. So for a supermoon to happen, we need two things to happen at the same time. We need, first of all, a full moon to be happening. And the moon goes through its phases, right? In about 29 days, the moon goes through a full set of its phases. We're looking here at the Earth, the moon here in orbit, and the sun way off here in the distance. Over here on the right, we are looking at what we would see from the moon as if we were standing on the surface of the Earth. Now, the phases of the moon sort of begin their cycle with a new moon. And that's when, well, there isn't really much moon, really any moon for us to see. That's because the side of the moon that's facing the Earth during a new moon isn't actually getting any sunlight. So there's really nothing for us to see. But as the moon goes through its cycle, through its orbit around the Earth, we can gradually start to see more and more and more of the moon as its position changes. Eventually, the moon ends up on the other side of the Earth from the sun. Now the side of the moon facing us is getting lots and lots of sunlight. So we can see the entire side of the moon facing us being lit up by that wonderful, wonderful sunlight. And of course, the moon continues its orbit around the Earth. Every 29-ish days, the moon goes through this full cycle of phases, from new moon to quarter moon to full moon to quarter moon to new moon and back again and again and again. So that full moon is just one part of our supermoon equation. But the other part of our supermoon equation is that word that I love to say, which is perigee. So the full moon is the syzygy part, and then here is the perigee part. The moon does not make a perfectly circular path around the Earth. At its closest, the moon is about 224,000 miles away from the Earth. At its furthest distance away, the moon is about 253,000 miles away. So this difference in distance means that the moon appears different sizes in the sky. At its furthest distance, which we call an apogee, the moon is this 252,000 miles away from the Earth. Whereas at perigee, its closest point to the Earth, the moon is about 224,000 miles away. So between its furthest and its closest distance, there's a difference of about 30,000 miles. Now, the supermoon happens when the full moon coincides with the moon also being at perigee, or at least being near perigee. So the supermoon happens when a full moon occurs while the moon is near its very closest point to the Earth. That leads us to seeing a full moon that looks bigger and brighter than just our regular run-of-the-mill full moon. And these don't happen all the time, though we are lucky that we have a supermoon this month and also a supermoon next month on May 26th. So if you missed the supermoon tonight, you've got another chance in 1 month. So to look at the supermoon in the sky tonight, right as the sun is going down, again, we're talking about 9:30 or so in the evening, you're going to need to face toward the southeast. And the supermoon is going to be a little bigger and a little brighter than an average full moon. Now, to compare a supermoon, again, a full moon that happens at perigee, comparing that to a micromoon, that is a full moon that happens when the moon is at apogee, at its furthest distance from the Earth. A supermoon is 14% brighter, 14% bigger and 30% brighter than that micromoon. So a supermoon does look bigger, it is going to look brighter, But it's not like the moon is going to be quadrupled in size. It's not going to get quite that big, but it will definitely be a little bit bigger and a little bit brighter than a regular full moon, and certainly bigger and brighter than a micro moon. But if we want to see the supermoon tonight, thankfully, what's really great about these is we have lots and lots of chances to do that tonight. Around 9 o'clock, 9:30, the moon will be low in the sky over here toward the southeast. But as the night goes by, the moon is going to stay nice and visible in the sky. As we move forward through time here, we'll be able to just watch the moon trace a nice path through the sky. And the moon is going to stay visible until about 6 in the morning, which is right as the sun is going to be rising. So if you can't step outside right as the sun goes down, literally any time tonight between sunset and sunrise, you'll be able to see this supermoon. Lots and lots of chances to see that tonight, and hopefully wherever you are, you will have nice, beautiful, clear skies. When we're looking out at the moon, right? This is something you don't need any special equipment to see. You can see this with just your eyes. You can, if you've got a pair of binoculars at home or a telescope at home, this is a great night to take those out and to look at the moon. When you're looking at the moon, though, let's talk a little bit about what exactly we're going to be seeing when we look at the surface of the moon. To do that, we're going to hop up off the Earth and we're going to travel at about 224,000 miles until we make it to the moon. Now, for the Apollo astronauts back in the 60s and 70s, this journey took them about 3 days. But for us, now that journey is going to take us about 15 seconds. So here's the moon as it looks from nice and up close. And really there's two main kinds of features that we can see on the moon with our eyes or with binoculars or a telescope from the Earth. And it's sort of different colors that we find on the moon. We find these much darker areas here, and then these lighter areas we find down here. Now those darker areas of the moon are what we call Maria. And Maria are younger features. Those are the sort of the younger parts of the moon. Then the later parts we find are called the highlands or the lunar highlands. These are the oldest spots that we find on the moon. Looking a little bit closer here at the Maria, we find is that the Maria, these very darker regions, are a whole lot smoother than the highlands, than those lighter areas. We definitely find still some craters and other features in the Maria, but not quite as many. That's because these Maria are actually areas that were formed by volcanic activity, by lava welling up and then cooling down on the surface of the moon. And this lava, this volcanic activity, helped to fill in a lot of the craters that at one point were there. On the highlands, though, there really was never any volcanic activity. So these craters really had no way of being filled in. Now, the moon is no longer volcanically active today. It's a little bit too old for that. But back when the moon was much younger, 4.4 billion years ago, there was some volcanic activities in those areas that we see today as those darker areas. So the moon has lots and lots of wonderful things to check out from the Earth in the sky. See how many craters you can count on the moon. Some of the bigger ones you can even see with only your eyes. If you've got a telescope or a pair of binoculars, that's of course something else you can do to see the moon even a little bit better. But the supermoon is a wonderful event, a wonderful night to step outside, enjoy the night sky, and to check out the moon. Now, really quickly, we're going to move on for just a little bit here to talk about some other things that we can check out in the sky. While we're waiting, though, if you have any questions, you can feel free to write those questions in the comments at any point. I'm going to take a quick look through the comments now, see if there if there are any questions that we can answer real quick before we move on. And this is also a good time to mention something that I forgot to mention at the beginning of our show today. If you are enjoying our Planetarium Online shows, a great way to support Liberty Science Center is through our donate button, which is located somewhere around your screen right now. It depends on where you're viewing this. But if you'd like to support Liberty Science Center, that's a great way to do that if you'd like to, and if you're able, using that donate button. So it looks like here I'm not seeing too many questions, but again, feel free to post those in the comments if at any point you have them. Now, when we're looking outside at the full moon, again, early in the night, we'll find that over toward the southeast. There's also some really cool things we can find in other parts of the sky as well. Oh, actually, really quickly, I just saw a really great question come through. Lucas wants to know why this is called a pink supermoon. That is a really great question. You've probably read that somewhere. This being called a pink moon. So the pink moon is just the name that we give to the first full moon that happens in the month of April. It's a really confusing name because it makes us think that maybe the moon is actually going to turn pink. The moon will not turn pink. It'd be cool if it did, but unfortunately it will not. So the pink moon is just what we call the first full moon in April. This is called the pink supermoon because, well, it's it's the first full moon in April, so it's a pink moon and a supermoon. So we call it a pink supermoon. So unfortunately, the pink supermoon is not actually going to be pink. So Catherine wanted to know how often do supermoons actually happen? We usually get about 2 or 3 supermoons per year. We've got one tonight, and then there's also going to be another supermoon next month on May 26th. If you live on the West Coast or in the Pacific Islands or in the eastern part of Australia, the full moon next month is going to also be a lunar eclipse. So if you're on the west coast of the U.S., if you live in the Pacific Islands, or if you're in Australia, you'll be able to also see a lunar eclipse next month during the super full moon as well, which is really cool. So how far is the moon from the Earth? At its closest, the moon gets to about 224,000 miles away, but on average, the moon is about 240,000 miles away. I wanted to know, can we see the supermoon all day? So we can't see the supermoon during the day. We can see it all night long. So from the instant the sun goes down tonight to the instant the sun comes back up early tomorrow morning, we'll be able to see the supermoon. So anytime tonight while it's dark, you'll be able to see the supermoon. So lots of great questions. If you have more of them, we'll be answering those during the course of the show today as well. But I wanted to actually turn ourselves around until we are facing over toward the west. Early in the evening, that's where we'll be able to find some really cool constellations and even a planet up in this part of the sky as well. So we're facing now toward the east. We're again looking outside tonight at about 9:15 in the evening. Looking over in this western part of the sky, we can find a planet in this sky. It's glowing with kind of a reddish orange color to it. It's going to be a little more than halfway up on your screen right now. And to help us find this planet, I actually love to use tonight anyway a little V shape of stars down here, very low in the sky. This little V shape of stars is a part of a constellation that is called Taurus the Bull, one of the constellations of the zodiac. That V shape marks sort of the face of Taurus the bull. Looking above the horns of Taurus, kind of following his right horn up into the sky a little bit, we are going to find the wonderful planet Mars. So while you're out checking out the supermoon, you can also find Mars in the sky as well. Now, if you've been following us and our Planetarium Online broadcasts for the past probably 7 or 8 months, we have spent a lot of time talking about a really, really cool mission that recently landed on the surface of Mars. And we haven't really done a Planetarium Online show since some really cool things have happened. So I wanted to give you just a really quick update on this mission. The mission was a rover named Perseverance, which landed in this big crater on Mars called Jezero Crater. It's landing here, or it landed here, I should say. Jezero Crater is a great place to look for signs of ancient life. It used to be full of water. This Perseverance rover, though, had sort of tucked in inside of it, tucked right in this part of the rover, a really cool science experiment called Moxie. Now, Moxie has the job of trying to turn the atmosphere of Mars, which is mostly carbon dioxide, into breathable oxygen. And Moxie here has so far done a pretty good job of doing that. It's created so far about 20 or 30 minutes worth of breathable oxygen. Not enough to let humans survive on Mars, but it's a really great sort of proof of concept as to the sort of technology we could use in the future when we start sending humans to Mars to maybe create some oxygen for us. But traveling along with Perseverance was a really cool helicopter called Ingenuity. And if you've been following this mission, you will know that in the past couple weeks, in I guess the past week, Ingenuity has done some incredible things. Ingenuity is the first helicopter we've ever tried to send to another planet. We've never tried to fly something on a different planet before. So Ingenuity was a really great engineering test. Again, another sort of proof of concept to see if it's possible to do this. And about a week ago, Ingenuity made its very, very first flight. And the Perseverance rover was actually able to capture this flight using one of its really, really cool cameras. So the Ingenuity helicopter, what we're seeing here is real video footage. And in the first test, Ingenuity flew up about 10 to 15 feet in the air, hovered for about 35 seconds, and then landed back down on the Earth. A few days later, it made another test flight where it flew up even higher, about 30, 40 feet high, moved around a little bit, safely landed again. And then late last night, it made another successful test flight, flew to about that same 40 to 50 feet high, and moved around even more side to side, showing us that it is possible to actually fly something on another planet. Well, as long as that planet has an atmosphere, like the planet Mars does. Very thin one, but still enough for us to use a helicopter on. So Ingenuity is a uh, uh, really cool mission that is hopefully going to help us in our future explorations of Mars as well. But also, while you're outside checking out the supermoon, I wanted to give you at least one constellation that you can look for in the night sky as well. We're now into the late part of April, which means that our springtime constellations are getting really, really high up in the sky. We right now are facing toward the south around 9:45 or so in the evening. If you look pretty high in the sky toward the south, you will find this little sort of question mark shape, or this little, at least a backwards question mark shape, which marks the head of a constellation called Leo the Lion. So this backwards question mark shape here marks the head and the front part of the body of Leo. So Leo the Lion is a wonderful constellation that we can check out in the sky tonight, sitting up in the sky toward the south, just as the sun is going down. And the brightest star in Leo, by the way, is right down at the end of our backwards question mark. This bright star is named Regulus. So while you're outside tonight checking out the supermoon, you can also find Mars, you can find that constellation Taurus, and you can find the constellation also Leo the Lion, and the very bright star Regulus. So lots to check out in the night sky tonight while you're observing the supermoon. But the Earth is not the only planet that has moons. I mean, our moon is spectacular, but the Earth is not the only planet that has moons. Mars has moons. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune are all planets that have moons. So while we're talking about how cool our moon is, I thought this would be a great chance to also look at some of the other fascinating moons that we can find out in the solar system. So let's start off today looking at the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, so big that we could fit the Earth inside of it about 1,300 times. And the moons of Jupiter were actually the first moons that we discovered around another planet. These moons were discovered back in the 1600s by the famous astronomer Galileo. He discovered these moons, 4 of them anyway, and so we today call them the Galilean Moons. These moons are named Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. These are the 4 Galilean moons of the planet Jupiter. These are 4 really, really fascinating, really, really interesting moons to check out. But I wanted to share with you 2 of these moons in particular, starting with the moon Europa. Now, Europa is very different from most other moons that we find in the solar system. The Earth's moon, our moon, is made up of mostly rocks. Europa, though, is a moon that is made up, at least on the outside, mostly of ice. Let me see if I can get us into a better view, into a bit of a better view around Europa here, instead of just flying us through Europa. But Europa is a really, really great moon that is made up on the outside anyway of lots and lots of ice. Now, the inside of Europa is made up of of some really hot rocks inside of it. So the outside is ice. Here's Europa finally. The inside is very warm. The heat that's inside of Europa travels up toward the surface. And what this creates is this really interesting layer of liquid water beneath the outside of Europa. So beneath about a mile or 2 mile thick layer of ice here on Europa, we find a layer of liquid water. Now, what's going on inside of this liquid water ocean inside of Europa? We don't really know. Could there be some kind of life swimming around down there? We don't know. We don't know. We're hoping to send missions in the future to Europa to help us study to help us study this interesting moon a little bit more. Now, Europa is, again, just one of Jupiter's really, really interesting moons, and I wanted to also take us over to the first of Jupiter's Galilean moons, a moon named Io. I believe the moon with the shortest name in the solar system, just Io. Io is a really sort of really scarred looking moon. It has a very very sort of traumatic life to it. Io, being as close as it is to Jupiter, feels a really strong pull from Jupiter's gravity. And what this means is that Io is getting stretched and compressed and stretched and compressed and pulled and tugged on. This creates lots of friction, lots of heat deep inside of Io. And this creates lava inside of this moon. So Io was actually covered in dozens of volcanoes that spew out lava and ash and dust and dirt up onto the surface of Io, giving it these really interesting colors. When we look at Io, we find some of these like reddish orange colored areas, yellow spots. These come from different kinds of ash that get thrown out of these volcanoes that we find all over the surface of Io. So this is a moon that actually has active volcanoes on it. It's really, really cool that we can find places like this in our solar system. But these Galilean moons are not the only moons that Jupiter has. Jupiter has a ton of moons. In fact, so far to date, we have found 79 moons. We found 79 moons around the planet Jupiter. There are some recent scientific studies, though, that seem to think that Jupiter could have as many as 500 moons. We haven't found them yet, but there are scientists out there looking. We know that Jupiter has at least 79 because, well, that's how many we've discovered so far. But it's possible. It's possible that Jupiter has even more than that. So 79 moons, that is a huge number. That's a lot of moons. But the planet Saturn actually has more moons than Jupiter does. That's because in the past 5 or so years, we've begun to find many, many more moons that orbit Saturn. Now, 10 or 15 years ago, when I was going through grade school, I was taught that Saturn had 62 moons, which is a lot. But since then, we found 20 more. We now know that Saturn has at least 82 moons. 82, more than any other planet in the solar system. These moons that we've drawn in blue here, these are those newest discovered moons, the newest 20 of these moons that we've discovered. We're looking here at the orbits, or the paths that these moons take as they travel around the planet Saturn. But Saturn is home to one really big, really interesting moon. The largest of Saturn's moons is named Titan. It's called Titan because, well, it's really big. Again, it is the biggest of Saturn's moons. But Titan is unique in one way. Well, more than one way, but really one really fascinating way. Titan has an atmosphere. It's the only moon in the solar system that has a significant atmosphere. Because of this atmosphere, there's a good amount of surface pressure on this moon. That means that some of the gases that we find in this atmosphere can actually condense and form into liquids. Looking at the surface of Titan, we find lakes. Not lakes of liquid water, but lakes of liquid methane and lakes of liquid ethane. These are normally gases on the Earth, but it's so cold and under enough pressure on Titan that these gases can turn into liquids, can turn into lakes of liquid methane and liquid ethane. This is a fascinating moon, and again, another one of the moons that we are hoping to study even more in the future. But there are so many other fascinating moons of Saturn, we really only have time, unfortunately, to look at one more. Just like Europa that we saw earlier, Saturn has a little icy moon of its own, named Enceladus. Now, just like Europa, Enceladus is made up of lots of ice on the outside, but the inside is hot and active. When we look really closely at Enceladus, what we find is that coming out of the south pole of Enceladus are actually geysers of ice and water. These geysers let us know that inside of Enceladus, beneath that sheet of ice, we find another great example of a liquid water ocean inside of a moon. We discovered this by looking at these awesome geysers that are throwing out ice into outer space. So between Enceladus and Titan, Europa, Io, there are so many fascinating moons that we find in the solar system. Of course, our own moon is just as fascinating as the rest of them. And again, if you're just tuning in here to our show today, I want to just recap really quickly where and how we can find the supermoon in the night sky here tonight. So, looking outside, just as the sun is going down, if you face over toward the southeast, that is where you will find the supermoon, just rising in the sky as the sun is going down. But as the night goes by, the supermoon will stay visible in the sky all night long. From the moment the sun goes down until the moment the sun comes back up in the morning, we will be able to see this bright and beautiful supermoon in the sky. So if you live in some place with cloud-free, clear skies tonight, it's a great chance to go outside and to check out the moon. For those of us living in New York or New Jersey or Pennsylvania, we're going to have really clear, nice weather tonight. And I hope that wherever you live, you'll have some great weather to check out the supermoon in your sky as well. So with that, we've talked about the supermoon. We talked about some other things we can find in the sky, like Mars, and some cool constellations like Taurus and Leo. We've also looked at some other moons we can find in the solar system as well. And this does bring us to the end of the sort of main part of our program today. Now, if you have questions, now is a great time to write those into the comments here on Facebook. We'll be hanging out here for another probably 5 or 10 minutes answering more of your questions. But I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in today to another one of our Planetarium Online broadcasts. We'll be going live again next Thursday, where my colleague Krista will be taking us on a tour of the May nighttime sky. If you want to come visit us, though, at Liberty Science Center, now is a great time to do that. Now through May 9th, on the days we are open, which is Thursday through Sunday, we have some really awesome programming going on about animals, called Wild About Animals. So you can come check that out at Liberty Science Center, and we hope to see you visiting the planetarium as well. To buy tickets and to check out what else we have to offer, you can visit our website, which is lsc.org. Here on Facebook, though, if you have enjoyed our Planetarium Online broadcasts and you'd like to support us, if you'd like to, and if you're able to, you can do that using the donate button, which is located somewhere around my head right now, depending on what platform and what kind of device you are viewing this from. But I again wanted to thank everyone for joining us today while we talk about the supermoon. Before I sign off, though, let me take a real quick look and see if we've got any questions about anything that we've talked about today. Let me see. So, really quickly, I just want to mention, if anyone tuned in late, that's completely fine. You should be able to rewind the video that you're watching right now to the beginning, if you'd like to. Also, shortly after we finish today, this video will be uploaded to Liberty Science Center's Facebook page, along with every other Planetarium Online broadcast we've done over the past year. And we've done a lot of these. So there's lots of really great Planetarium Online content to check out if you want to check out any more. So, Nancy wanted to know, which direction can we see Taurus and Leo in the sky tonight? Great question. So let me step us back outside facing toward the west, that's where we're going to be able to find Taurus. Right as the sun is going down, Taurus is going to be really, really, really low in the sky toward the west. So Taurus is made up of this V shape of stars here, makes up the face of Taurus, and then we find the horns of Taurus, the bull, going up a little higher into the sky. And then right above Taurus the bull, that is where we are going to find the red planet Mars, hanging out right up here. Now, to find Leo, the lion in the sky, you'll want to turn around until you're facing toward the south. At that point, you want to look high up in the sky for the shape of this sort of backwards question mark shape we find right here. That backwards question mark marks the head and the front part of the constellation of Leo the lion, with the bright star Regulus shining right there. So 2 constellations you can check out tonight while you are looking at the supermoon. Let me see. So what is the earliest time to see the supermoon? So that's going to be right as the sun goes down. So it'll be about 8:30 or 9 o'clock tonight will be the earliest time that we can see the supermoon. Let's see. So Autumn wanted to know how the moon was made, and that is such a great question. How was the moon made? So a long time ago, we're talking 4.5 billion years ago. Long time ago. The moon and the earth were not really the moon and the earth. But what was here was a huge cloud of rocks and dust and dirt. Huge, gigantic cloud, thousands and thousands of miles across. Over time, this cloud of gas started to sort of shrink on itself. One chunk of this cloud of gas shrunk down, or this cloud of rock and dust and dirt and gas, all this stuff, shrunk down to form the Earth. Another section of it shrunk down to form the moon. Now, if we wanted to get into more detail, this chunk of rock that formed the moon at some point a long time ago actually crashed into the Earth. As wild as that sounds, it broke apart pieces of the Earth, it broke apart pieces of the moon, but then the moon sort of came back together and formed the moon that we see today. So the moon formed originally from a big cloud of rocks and dust and dirt, and then it crashed into the Earth and went through the same process again. It took a really, really long time, millions of years, for that formation to happen. Let's see. Jackie wanted to know, how do we decide if a celestial body is a moon? And that is such a great question. So we don't really have a super strict scientific definition as to what exactly makes something a moon. That may sound strange. Really, what we consider moons are naturally occurring objects, so rocks, that travel around planets. That's what makes something a moon. This brings up, though, a really, really interesting point of discussion. Looking inside the rings of Saturn, the rings of Saturn are made up of lots of small little chunks of ice and rock. Could all of these also be considered moons? We generally don't, but based on the scientific definition that we do have, you could make an argument that each of these billions of small pieces of ice and rock that travel around Saturn in these rings, I'm just realizing I forgot to switch my screen over. Here we go. Here we are looking inside the rings of Saturn. Looking here, we can see these rings of Saturn are made of these little small chunks of ice and rock. Could each of these little chunks of ice or rock also be considered moons? We don't usually consider them moons, but the definition we have is very open. So you could make an argument But really, what we consider a moon is a big chunk of rock or ice that travels around a planet. That's what we consider a moon. See, Remy wanted to know if I could vacation on any moon, what moon would I choose? I don't know if I can answer that question. I think if I had to pick one, though, that's a really hard question. It's the hardest question I've been asked in a very, very long time. If I had to pick one moon to vacation to, it would probably be Europa. Because I want to see what's going on beneath that sheet of ice. I want to see what's going on inside of Europa in that ocean. I'd probably have to pick Europa. Though visiting Titan or Enceladus or Io would, or even our own moon, would be pretty cool. So, Isabella wanted to know how many people have actually landed on the moon. So far, 12 people, I believe. 12 people have landed on the moon. And we're hoping in the next 5 or 10 years to land more people, including the first woman on the surface of the moon. We're hoping to do that in the next 5 to 10 years. That's the plan that NASA has, anyway, to send people back to the moon. Oh, so how were these rings of Saturn actually made? Well, Saturn used to have one more moon than it does today. There was once a really big moon that lived here that was made of ice. That moon, though, drifted a little bit too close to Saturn. Saturn's gravity then ripped that moon into pieces, leaving behind the little chunks of ice and rock that we see today. So the rings, we think, were formed by an icy moon getting ripped apart. This happened millions and millions of years ago. Let's see. Other questions that we have. Ooh, Mariah asks a really great question. Is there evidence of moisture on the Earth's moon? That is a fantastic question. Let me see if I can bring us back to the moon. So bear with me here for just a moment as I take us back to the moon. So this has been a point of contention for a pretty long time, whether or not there is any moisture on the moon. Now, what we will say is that there is no liquid water on the moon. So there's no liquid water on the moon because the moon is just too cold. It also has no atmosphere to keep that water as a liquid. So there's no liquid water. So I think we can say that there is no moisture on the moon. But just because there's no liquid water doesn't mean that there's no water. Down at the south pole of the moon, so down at the South Pole and a little at the North Pole, there's actually frozen water, ice, that's located inside of some of these craters. Now, down at the South Pole, these craters can hold on to their ice because sunlight never reaches there to melt them. So while there's no liquid water, there is frozen water down in some of these craters way, 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 way down on the south pole of the moon. So for future human missions, we would love to find a way to use some of this water to help us survive on the moon, to help us maybe stay there for a longer time. So down here inside some of these craters is where we've actually found evidence of frozen water, of ice. Okay. So one more final question as we are running all out of our time today. Is there an estimate of how old our solar system is? So our solar system, there is an estimate. The solar system is about 5 billion years old. That's about how old the sun is. The sun formed before the planets did. The planets in the solar system are more like 4.5 billion years old. So the solar system is somewhere between 4.5 to 5 billion years old, depending on how you want to define when exactly the solar system became the solar system. So the solar system's old, and in all that time, so many cool moons have formed, including uh, the Earth's own wonderful moon. But with that, thank you all so much for sticking around and asking some incredible questions. If we didn't get to your question, we're very sorry. We try to answer as many of your questions as we can today. If we didn't answer, if we didn't answer your question, you can feel free to tune in next week, next Thursday, and ask your question then, where we'll be talking about more astronomy, looking at a tour of the May sky. But once again, thank you so much. If you want to visit Liberty Science Center, you can check us out online at lsc.org. We have lots of great Wild About Animals programming going on at the Science Center between now and May 9th. But thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope we have some really clear skies tonight wherever you are, and good luck observing the supermoon. Thank you, and take care.